Hi everyone, this is Nicole and I am here to show you my process of how I put together the Scrapbook Generation kits. I subscribe to the Super Sketch Club and I will post a link below, one or two videos explaining the kit that I subscribe to. For this particular kit I started with the Super Saver layouts, which are the three layouts that all use the same paper line, and the notebook that I showed there was just some notes that I had written down while I was editing and sizing my photos and sending them off for printing, and I had just taken some notes to remind myself later when I did the layouts which orientation I wanted the photos and which layouts that they were going to go on. And there was a couple of the photo sizes that I had actually changed, so I just kind of made a little note to myself of where I was intending for those smaller photos to go. So right now I'm just going through all the different papers and I am cutting everything apart. At the very beginning of the video you saw the instructions. I just put some tape on them and taped them to the wall in front of my desk so that I could see them and that they wouldn't be on frame, because as I mentioned in another video, I will not be showing the sketches or the instructions because that's just part of what you get for subscribing to the kit. I basically am doing these videos to help myself get better at doing process videos, as well as pretty much just showing you how easy they are to put together and what I do as far as if I change any of them, or maybe I add or remove photos, or add some more embellishing or stamping or whatnot, just kind of how I go about putting them together. And I have a pretty high stack of backlogged kits. I'm probably going to be doing these for a while, mostly just because it's something I can pull out and do relatively quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to sit down and put them all together at once, so a lot of times these videos might be a little choppy, just because I have to get up and walk away and take care of my kids here and there. So I've got everything cut up and I'm just kind of going and putting the different pieces together, the stuff for the first layout, the second, and the third. And then this kit had a couple extra pieces, so I was just going through and making sure that they were in fact extra pieces and that I hadn't missed anything. The photos I pulled off of Scrapbook Generation's blog, so you can go to their blog and check out photos from the past kits. At this point I'm just separating all the photos that I had printed and finding the ones that I was going to use on this one. I'm starting with the first layout and just kind of figuring out how I'm going to do things. I did end up adding, I think, 2 additional photos. The sketch had called for 2 horizontal 4x6 photos, and you can see on my desk right there those 2 photos that are actually 3x4s printed on one 4x6. That's kind of how I add extra photos here and there. And then that large 4x6 photo of my daughter, I'm going to go ahead and add to the large open space on the Sunray paper, mostly just because it helps me add another picture, and I have a hard time with the wide open white spaces on layouts. I tend to try to get as many photos as I possibly can. So at this point I am getting everything ready. I've inked the edges. I like to use color box, chalk ink, and chestnut brown. I buy them 5 or 6 at a time at my local store. And I'm just trying to get everything lined up straight. A lot of times the inking that you saw me do on the side, the pattern papers, sometimes if I trim them just a hair shorter than 12 by 12, I don't like how you can see the cardstock sticking out. So I'll just hide it with a little bit of the brown chalk ink. So now I'm just putting that large sunray down, trying to get it as straight as I can. And I decided to go ahead and put it on the paper first and then cut off the overhang instead of trying to measure and hope that I had everything right. It was just easier to do it this way. And then I'm just going to chalk that exposed edge. And like I said in a previous video, for some reason I usually do the right page first, and I have no idea why. It's It's just a habit that I've gotten into. Most of the time I'll start on the right page and then work my way to the left. I've no rhyme or reason to it, and I know most people work left to right. So I'm just inking the pieces that go on the left page and attaching those to the cardstock. And I'm pretty much just following the photos at this point as far as where the different elements go. I will usually read through the cutting instructions a couple times just to kind of get a feel for how things are, and I almost always use the photos as my reference. And at this point I'm trying to go back through the the little branding strips from the bottom of the paper, because a lot of times on these kits from Scrapbook Generations, they will use every little bit and piece, and you have to read in the instructions, and it'll usually tell you where they got, this particular little banner piece happened to be off of a branding strip. So I always try to cut the branding strips off first and set them aside. That way, as I'm cutting my papers, I'm not cutting through the branding strip and kind of messing up my process later on. So at this point I am getting out my corner punch to go ahead and round the edges of these 4x6 cards that were from the cut apart sheet, and then I'm inking those banners that I just cut and then the 2 cards. And then I'll go ahead and corner around the edges of the 2 photos that I was going to use on that side of the paper so that everything over there looks the same and has the same feel to it. And for some reason I'm having a really hard time with those Tombow tape runners, but I haven't pulled the trigger on buying an ATG gun because I've heard it's really hard to pull up your paper or your photos, and I tend to pull things up a lot. I'm not very good about laying things out and making sure that I like how it is before I start adhering things down. I tend to just go for it, but I think I'm gonna have to make the switch soon because I find that after I do a page, my paper starts to pull up, and I'm thinking that it must be the tape runner that I use is just not strong enough. And for some reason, the last couple rolls that I've been using, they're not even coming off the roll right. Like, I'm having a hard time even just getting it onto the paper. So at this point, I am using the photos as a reference to figure out where the stickers go, and I tried to go to the website where I got the photos from, because a lot of times I can pull it up on my phone and then I can zoom in and see it a little bit better. But this happens to be the one photo on the blog that it's not, however they upload it so that you can click on it, it's not clickable. So I'm just gonna have to, try to use the one that I printed out and figure out which stickers go on this one. So I just followed the photo and cut apart that border strip that had the title on it, rounded the corners and inked the edges, and then I'm just using some foam tape to pop it up, give it some dimension. And then I'm going to go ahead and put down my photos because I'm pretty sure about where I want to put them. And now I'm going through and pulling off all the stickers that I know for sure I can see in the photo, I know where they go, I know that I need to use them. And I went ahead and cut it out, but I had inked the edges and put foam adhesive on the back of them. I didn't feel like you guys needed to be tortured and watch me do that for 20 minutes. So I went ahead and cut it out. And some of the stickers I did have to go back and rip the foam tape off because I wasn't paying attention on the instructions. It does tell you which ones you need to pop and which ones are flat, so. Okay, and then I have moved on to the left side and did the same thing. I pulled off all the stickers, put foam on the back of the ones that were popped, inked the edges so that they matched up with the papers. And now I'm just following the photo and putting them down where they need to be. And then the 4x6 card on the lower left that says things to do this summer has this really cute like checklist for summer items. So I pulled out a Allie Edwards stamp set that had some dots on it and some of the stamp pads that I showed in the previous video, and I'm just going to go through and use the little dot as kind of like a check mark and sort of check off the things that we did this summer, or general things that we do. And I've got little kids, so there's not a whole lot on this list that I was able to check off, but it was more of just adding a little bit more interest to that flat element on the page. And I think I want to say I used, those are all Stampin' Up! Colors, so it's like Daffodil Delight, the orange I think is a tangerine color, the green is Lucky Limeade, that pink I want to say is like Regal Rose, and I don't think I ended up using the blue. So that was page 1. Thanks!